Good afternoon, Rabbi. We were asked by one of the local rabbis if it's permitted for a chatan, for the son-in-law, to live by his in-laws. Right? What does that mean? The parents of his wife. Is it allowed for them to live in one apartment, in one house? So the truth is, we find in the Gemara, Masechet Kiddushin, Daf Yud Bet Amud Bet, it says over there that Rav, one of the great rabbis of the Talmud, used to give lashes to somebody who did this. Right? What does that mean? Explains Rashi, the reason why he lashed him is because it's considered to be a problem with there's an attraction between the mother-in-law and the son-in-law. There seems to be some kind of attraction there, like it's brought down. So what that means is that they could come to do something forbidden, God forbid. So therefore, we don't want them to have constant contact with one with the other. This applies, by the way, especially to the first son-in-law, the one that marries the first daughter of the family. It especially applies to them, and says the Rashbam, it also applies to the other ones as well, except that the first one is even stronger. So therefore, this is the reason why that we don't permit the son-in-law to live with the parents of his wife together, because they may come to do something wrong. There's also, we find in the Rambam that he rules halachically that it is forbidden to do this because of peritzuta, because it's considered to be something which is promiscuous, that they should live together, the son-in-law and the mother-in-law. Where do we find this? In Hilchot Isurei Biyah, in the 21st chapter, Chaf Aleph, in the 15th halakha. He writes over there that it's forbidden to do such a thing. But we find over there in the Ravad, who comes and argues with the Rambam, not argues but qualifies, let's say. He says that if they make a special room for the Chatan and Kala to dwell there, they have their own room to sleep and dwell, so then he says it's permitted to do so. So the truth is that we do find that there is a machloket. Also, we find in the Tosfot that he says that nowadays it's permitted to do this, to live together like that. The reason is because there's a lack of dwelling places, right? They have shortage of dwelling. So therefore, in order to save money, in order to save the dwelling space, they all dwell together because they have no choice, pretty much, right? They can't really go to a different house because it costs too much money or it's not available, whatever it is. So it says Tosfot, now the custom is to be lenient regarding that because of the reason of a lack of dwelling. Says the Rosh, another reason why it's allowed to do so, because he says, right, that the halacha is not like this Gemara, which is brought down in the Kiddushin over there. He says the halacha is not like the Gemara. There's a different Gemara which says differently, whatever. So therefore, it says the Rosh that we don't rule like this Gemara, we don't pass like this Gemara. So the truth is, Rabbi, that we do find in several Rishonim, as well as the Meiri, he also writes that there is no prohibition nowadays because the ladies are very modest and they don't really have an issue with these kinds of things. They don't get involved with the son-in-law like that, like it doesn't get that close. The truth is, Rabbi, that even though we do find several Rishonim, earlier authorities that were lenient, we actually do find a very scary story brought down in the Nodab Yehuda, which was told to us by Moreno Rabbeinu Maran Rav Shalom Ovadia. There was actually a case in Europe where one son-in-law went to live with his in-laws, with the parents of his wife. They went to live over there together. What happened was that they committed adultery. Right, the son-in-law committed adultery with the mother of the wife. And what happened was that now he had to do tshuva. He had to repent. So he went to a rabbi and he asked him. He said, what should we do now? We committed adultery. Do we have to get divorced now? And all these things, right? The truth is, right? Not we. What does that mean? The parents of the wife, do they have to get divorced? That's the question. Why? Because since she committed adultery, the rule is that they have to get divorced. But so the Nodab Yehuda told them that since the husband doesn't know about it, so therefore, as long as he doesn't know, they don't have to get divorced. And he told them to do all kinds of ways to do tshuva on the sin that he did. They committed adultery. So we see from there, Rabbi, that also, practically speaking, whatever the Gemara warns us, that it is dangerous to dwell like this together, the son-in-law and the mother-in-law, because there's an attraction between them. We find that actually this, is a very dangerous thing. So therefore, even though we find in the contemporary posek, the Shevet HaLevi, one of the great rabbis of the generation, Rav Vazner, he writes now the custom also, like Tosfot, he says, the custom is now to be lenient and to allow dwelling together the son-in-law and mother-in-law, whatever. So the truth is, Rabbi, that we do have what to rely on if there's no choice. If they don't have a suitable dwelling for the Chatan and Kala, for the bride and groom, so they can go and live with their in-laws. What can they do until they find a place? But the truth is, Rabbi, since we do find that the Gemara is very strict about this, and so is the Rambam, And so we find, right, in Noda actually that this actually led to a case of adultery. So there we do find, right, that this is a dangerous predicament. So therefore, if a person has a other choice, some kind of other right way to dwell, not with the mother-in-law, he should opt for that. So it's not very good to be lenient regarding this. But if there's no choice, they can be lenient, like it says in the Shevet Halevi. You also find in the Magid Mishneh, on the Rambam there that we mentioned, he also says that the custom now is to be lenient, even though he doesn't so much agree with it, but he also admits the custom is to be lenient. So the truth is, Rabbi, right, the bottom line is, the custom is to be lenient nowadays because of several reasons. Nevertheless, if a person can avoid this, very, very, very smart to avoid, because it is dangerous, there are dangers involved, and these dangers have actually led to, right, great sins. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu should save us from all kinds of mishaps and all kinds of sins. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'Amen.